Welcome back to part 3 of the WCCC holiday card, and we're going to do some image adjustments on these very dark yellow, almost orangey type photos, which are on layers. So make sure that you select the layer, and you could always use the eyeball and turn it on and off. And I'm on that layer part of this, and what I want to do is brighten it up so that it doesn't look so dark, and also get rid of the oranginess and the yellowness of it. Now, there's not a whole lot I can do, but I can improve this somewhat. So. Now keep in mind, one thing I have to be aware of, there's candles here, so they're very bright. So I already have a real sharp highlight there, so I don't want to bleach out these candles too much. But let's take a look at this. First thing always to take a look at is just go to levels and see what you're dealing with. And you can see there's a lot of darks, okay, in this photo. Hardly any highlights other than the candles. So when you do see this flat line, like I've mentioned in the past, if you see the flat line here on highlights, feel free to kind of drag that over almost to where this little mountain starts. So bring that over here. I mean, you are gonna bleach out, get close to bleaching out some things here. But if you kind of turn the preview on and off, you'll see that you just want to make sure you're not losing detail. And we're not. We could be losing slight detail in here where the candles glowing on their white blazers, but I think we're okay with that. So I'm going to hit OK. So we just kind of brighten the lights a little bit. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check out the shadows. I'm going to go Image Adjustments, Shadows, Highlights, and you can see that does a lot. At 50%, that does quite a bit, maybe even too much. I'll take it down to maybe 40, and I'll just look at before and after, and you can see it's bringing out a lot of shadow. It's bringing out the shadows in their hair, which in some places you can't even see their hair, so it's probably a good idea to run Shadows, Highlights on here, and I'll hit OK. So that the shadows took care of areas in shadows, the levels took care of the highlights, brightening them up. And what I'm now going to do is try to get rid of this yellowness. So I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, Photo Filter. And Photo Filter has a warming filter, which I do not want to use, but they do have a cooling filter. And I think the one that works best is 82. And if you're not sure, try 80. And it still looks kind of orangey. So I'm going to go to 82. And that cools it off really nice. Some of the other ones just kind of make it too saturated. And when you change it, they change the color too much. So I'm going to use this Cooling Filter 82. And at 25% does a nice job. If you look at before and after, it's doing a nice job of kind of taking out the yellow. I'll move it up a little bit. You don't want to get it too bluish. You don't want to look like there's a blue light on them. But if somewhere around maybe 40, if you do before and after, it's doing a nice job. I mean, there's still kind of a warm feel to it. So I'll take it to like 50 and see how that works. You're not going to make it completely white, but there's still a warm feel, but it gets rid of that yellow glow, and it takes away the oranginess off their faces by doing this. So I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm pretty happy with that. And if you're not sure, you could go to your history palette, you could go to Window History, and kind of look at the way it started. It's before, and then here going down, this is kind of how it ended up after. So it's before, after, just by using levels, shadows, highlights, and then finally the photo filter. It does a nice job before, after. So we're going to probably use the same things on that next photo. And I'm also going to sharpen this. I'll go Filter, Sharpen, Unsharpen Mask, or I'll just use the unsharpened mask I used last time, which should be fine. Be careful, if the photo's not a good quality photo, you may sharpen more, get more noisiness. Okay. So, but we didn't use a real high sharpening amount, so we should be okay. Okay. So going down to this one, I'm just going to use the same issues we have here. So I'll check out. Make sure you select that layer. And I'm going to go Image Adjustments, Levels, and see what I'm dealing with. And they're not as bad. There's no flat line here, so because there is a lot of light here, I can't just push this up a whole lot because I'm going to bleach out a lot here. But I am going to do it a little bit. Just as I'll do it by eye, just to make sure I'm not losing any detail. And I'm not. I mean, if I go too far, I'll start losing detail. But actually, even going up this little ramp here, I'm not losing detail. So I am going to adjust my lights here, because I do need to. I do want it brighter, because they're being lit by candlelight. So obviously it's kind of dark. So moving my highlights to around 190 is probably fine, and that's with levels. The next thing I mentioned is shadows, highlights. Now I don't have as many shadows here because they're kind of silhouetted on this dark background. So I could try it and see what I get, but I don't think I'm going to have a whole lot of shadows to deal with. And even at 50, you don't see a big change. So there's not a lot of shadows, just in the hair, things like that. So I can use a little. I'll usually turn this down a little so it doesn't look too artificial. But it is bringing out some highlights in their hair and skin tones a little. You can see this photo isn't a great photo. It's kind of grainy in the dark, so there's not a lot we can do about it. And I'll hit OK. And then the last thing we did on the other one was the cooling filter. Image adjustments, photo filter, and we used that cooling 82, which worked really nice, and I think we did it somewhere up around 50. And that does a nice job for this one too. Again, it's not a great photo, but it sure looks a lot better than it did. And if you want to see what it looked like before, just go to your history palette and just go back to where you started. So this is the start, and this is where we end up. So it looks a lot better. We're seeing details in the hair. We're seeing details. It's not looking as yellow, and so it's certainly an improvement, as much as we can do with this kind of photo. So I'm going to, well, one more thing I'll do here, since I think we have a little time. I'm going to bring in my bow, and then we're going to do the ribbons on here. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to go to Firefox, my browser, and I'll just do a search, and I'll just do a search for red bow. And I'll hit return, and then I'll just search for images. And there's lots of red bows to work with. You could choose any. Be careful, some of these will have watermarks on them because they're from clip art sites. But I'm going to use this one. This is the one I had. And what you could do is just click on it. And I don't have any watermarks, so I'm just going to right-click on this. And you could, you could save this down and then bring it in. Or you could just do right-click and copy image. And I'm going to go back to Photoshop and do Edit Paste. And it gets paste here as a new layer, and I'll drag it to the top, and I'll call it bow. And what I'll need to do with this layer is scale it down, obviously, but first what I'll do, I think, is I'll get rid of the white background. And I could do that, and I have to be careful because remember, selecting areas of similar color can sometimes be an issue because I have white touching here where the white background is. But I'm going to try the magic wand. And the magic wand tolerance, the higher the tolerance, the more colors it's going to find. The lower tolerance, the sharper it's going to be. And the tolerance here, this magic wand is picking up areas around here, and it's going into the white. So I don't know if magic wand's going to be the best. If it didn't have that white there, this would be perfect. But I'm going to try my quick selection tool. And actually, I'm going to do Command D and deselect everything, and I'll start over my quick selection tool, and I can make my brush bigger, a little bit bigger here. My quick selection tool. I'll just kind of select in here. Now you could go in and select in your bow as well, and look at that. That went around pretty nicely now. It selected all that white area, and it didn't get in to these areas here. So that worked pretty good with my quick selection tool, the one right over here. And now what I selected was the background. So I'm going to add a layer mask. Rather than just deleting, I'm going to add a layer mask, and I'm going to say hide selection, because remember I selected the background. So what's selected is the stuff I don't want. So I want to do hide selection, and there it hides my selection. And if I wanted to edit this a little bit better, because there may be some stuff that's left over here, and if I option click on my mask, I'll see my mask, and you can see the edge. There may be a little pieces that we missed. But what I'm going to do is take my paintbrush, go on the mask, make sure you select the mask, and remember if you paint with black you take away from the mask, and then I'm just going to go and tweak this thing a little bit. I'm just going click and then holding shift just to kind of edit around here. You could do it freehand too, and I'm just doing kind of straight line edits, kind of take off the little halo that was left there. Okay, now I did some of this. I paused the video and did some of this. Now you can see some places are missing here. I'm going to zoom into this, and some of this got taken away by the mask. And remember, you can always just flip this and paint with white and bring some of that back. So if anything got taken off by accident, you you can always add to the mess. Again, that's the beauty of the layer mask, is that you could use white to kind of add back to it. So if any little pieces got cut off, you can just add them. And I think we're okay with most of this here. And again, you can just keep switching back between black and white to tweak it a little bit better. But I think we're okay with our bow. And so I'll go back and I'll see. And our bow's a little bit big. Now remember to scale down. Just use your move tool. Grab the corners. Scale it down as you need. We don't want to cover up anybody. I'm just going to position it in the middle here. And I'm going to hit return. And another thing I'm going to add to this, I'll select the layer. I'm going to add a little drop shadow to this. And these are our layer effects. And I'm going to go to Layer, Layer Style, and I'm going to go to Drop Shadow. And over here in our palette for drop shadow, I like to just move the size and the distance, and that's usually about it. Sometimes I'll take down the opacity, but spread will just kind of make it harder. But for drop shadows, I don't usually want it. For glows, I might use that a little bit, but I think we're okay with this. So I increase the size and distance to both to about 10, and I hit OK. And there's my drop shadow. And if I zoom into this so you can see it, there's the drop shadow. If I turn it off, there's without the drop shadow, there's with the drop shadow. So I'll zoom back again, and you can see there's areas of the bow there. I could have got rid of some of this stuff here, but that's okay for now. And what we're going to do is put the ribbon on next. So that'll be our next step.